could not attend, and we would like this session to be available to all of them. Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you to everyone who came today. I think we could feel very warm atmosphere. You know, alumni are spreading across the campus, going to different discussions and having discussions here. And I would say those discussions are very deep and meaningful, and I believe that this is exactly what we need right now, because this is something that will give us some future thinking and hope. We will have the next panel with two very distinguished participants, if I may say so, and I will try to moderate that. I would like to introduce to you Father John Jenkins, who is American Catholic priest of the Congregation of Holy Cross. But most of us know Father Jenkins as president of Notre Dame. You were 17th president, and you served for 19 years. 19 years, my God, so much work. You know, I'm astonished. I'm not a tuku working for 19 years yet. It's coming, but to be a president, that's a huge responsibility. So welcome back, Father John. We are blessed and privileged to have you for the second time on our campus. And of course, we are so glad to have Vladika, Bishop Boris with us, who is, well, I will say first, who is president of Ukrainian Catholic University. Sorry if I am ruining all the correct order which I have to follow right now, but for us, you're first of all president of Ukrainian Catholic University and our great leader. And also Bishop Boris is Metropolitan for Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church in United States, in the Eparchy of Philadelphia. And it's also a lot of work, you know, to be on both continents, having such huge responsibility. So maybe I will just would like to start our discussion with we plan to talk about universities, Catholic universities, because I have to say today, actually, I have two presidents of two of my favorite universities, one Ukrainian favorite university and one American favorite university. So our universities never wanted to be one of 200 other universities in Ukraine. Probably Notre Dame didn't want to be one of, I don't know how many universities are in the United States, but how did you want this purpose to be different, to be meaningful? Maybe we'll start with you, Father John. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Sophia, for that generous introduction. Thank all of you for being here. And thanks to the Ukrainian Catholic University for the warm welcome. I've been here twice, but always the welcome is so warm and so personal and so wonderful. And so I want to just publicly thank everyone for that who was involved. So thank you for that. Well, you know, why am I here in this place in Lviv when, you know, many other universities around the world? Well, I will say, I think Notre Dame feels a special affinity with the Ukrainian Catholic University. We're two Catholic universities, and there are a number of those, but I feel the kind of strength of the vision and the power of the vision of UCU is something that we, with which we resonate, with which we feel a bond with, and I think it involves, and as Sophia was saying, there are many universities in Ukraine, many universities in the United States. I find personally that there's a tendency for universities to imitate one another and to kind of see who's best and try to be like that person, and therefore you can see a certain conformity of thinking of how they do business. And what we tried to do at Notre Dame, and I know what UCU tries to do, is different, and therefore to provide, to contribute something different, something special to its students, to its alumni, and to the society. and to the church of which it's all of which it serves and all of which are its constituencies. What is that? I hope what we provide at Notre Dame, and I believe what CU provides, is a sense of, to its students, and that's its most important constituency, I hope, is a sense of a purpose to their education and their lives. I think most universities, I speak of the United States here, that's what I know, don't do that. They simply provide you with a set of some knowledge, expertise in an area for which you can use to get a job and have a career, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. But I hope Notre Dame and UCU challenges all our students to think about a broader purpose to their lives, a broader meaning to their lives that is valuable and powerful and transformative in the lives of those students and in the lives of the person. So that's one thing. I think what I find at UCU and what is true at Notre Dame is a sense of community. I don't think you find at other universities a sense that people come together not simply to occupy the same space, but with a sense of community, and that's tremendously powerful. Oddly enough, at this time, I know in the United States, maybe around the world, where there's a sense of fragmentation, a sense of isolation, a sense of not being part of something bigger. I think UCU and Notre Dame provide that, and that's part of its mission as well. And I hope, maybe finally just a sense of tradition, not in a narrow, reactionary, conservative sense, but rather in a sense that, there's so much skepticism about institutions, about traditions, that we can kind of embrace the traditions that shape our lives and make them powerful for the future. I think UCU does that. I hope Notre Dame does that as well. I think that's a powerful contribution at this time when I know in my part of the world that's under threat in many ways, when there's a lack of trust in traditions and institutions. And I think we can provide that. And you combine all these things, and that in itself is a powerful force for our students, but also, I hope, for the people they encounter as they go out. So that's what I'd say, Sophia, is some of the things that I'd highlight as the commonalities between our institutions that make us different.
Thank you. Vladiko, maybe you know pretty well Notre Dame. You have been speaking there at the commencement ceremony. We feel so much solidarity from Notre Dame, especially over the last 2.5 years. Is there anything you wanted to share with students and faculty at Notre Dame, what we are going through and what we are living through, and what was that message which you wanted to bring from Ukrainian Catholic University to the whole world? Because I think we often have to give those messages now, and sometimes it helps to know what can touch people there.
I want to just say a word of welcome to Father John. It's such a grace to have him here. And a number of us have been welcomed at Notre Dame, and that hospitality and fraternity is something that really has helped carry us at this time. What does this time allow us to share? I must say in the U.S. in general, in the Catholic Church in America, and at Notre Dame, the story of what is happening in Ukraine has been very deeply received. Intuitively, I think, in a social way, and in a way that was a call to action. with some people, you don't have to say too much. I didn't say anything, and Notre Dame was already speaking to me. Notre Dame is a big football school, and they have a big stadium. American football, right? And it has very nice locker rooms where the athletes change. And I was brought into the locker room because the students were sitting on the graduates, probably 4,000 or something of them were sitting there. The parents were in the stadium, I don't know, 20,000, 25,000, maybe more. And you kind of realize things after, but people are keeping you from seeing something. There's a big screen on there, and it was only when we walked through a procession through the main, I think, area where the athletes on television run through like gladiators, that all of a sudden I saw all 4,000 graduates waving blue and yellow flags, each one of them. It's a moment I will never forget. So before I said anything, Notre Dame, was speaking, receiving, welcoming, and supporting. What Notre Dame is doing right now, and these are some of the things we talked about, and Notre Dame is doing something that many, many universities would need to think about and try to initiate. It is, for example, effectively decolonizing Slavic studies by introducing Ukrainian studies. Russian literature and history is a big topic, and it usually exhausts the field of Slavic studies in many institutions. Notre Dame is, doing something about that. That's very academic, intellectual, but it also is prophetic. Notre Dame has been interested in UCU in Ukraine not only the last 2.5 years, but I think it's about 20 years since the Nanovic Center, headed by Jim McAdams, who actually received an honorary doctorate from UCU. Notre Dame will be the only university that has 2 honorary doctors. I don't know any other actually American university that a professor has a doctorate. Notre Dame has been engaging in this part of the world and engaging in Catholic higher education and really coming to know what the history and the present of this part of the world is like, and actually helping to bring us together with the Croats, the Slovaks, the Poles, the Hungarians. So I think maybe sometimes before we were speaking, Notre Dame was listening, and before we were proposing, Notre Dame was already acting. And I think that's really amazing. And that's something we can learn from, because we have ample reason right now to be overwhelmed by our own challenges. But a university, the name comes at its root universal. And Catholic also means universal. And I think it's a very good example of our elder brother, Notre Dame, that we have before our eyes to be interested in the challenges and the experiences and the history and the future of others, even a world away.
Thank you. We have been talking at the previous panel as well about listening and being very attentive to the needs of of different people, different parts of our society. So my next question will be to both of you, but it's about hope and how universities can become places of hope. Father John, I know you today you had on your agenda visiting this cemetery, the Marsfield, and you visited Superhumans Rehabilitation Center and spoke with chaplains, and probably you feel that how difficult it is to keep balance, because we have to keep living, but at the same time we have so many challenges and tragedies happening every single day, every single moment. You also have some challenges in Western society. In US, people are still processing COVID in different dimensions. So how is it to be for the university to be this place of hope? And maybe Father John, I will start with you, and then you, Vladek.
That's a great question, Sophia, and it is a timely question. I do think there's I will say in the West, I find a certain cynicism is infiltrated our public life in a certain way, and a certain lack of what Boris was saying there, a kind of sense of the whole of concern for everyone. And so how can we be people of hope? I guess I think the most important thing is try to, in our own lives, live in a certain way that that gives a testimony, that gives a witness to another way of being. I just think that we talk. There's so much information right now with the internet, with television, with every just constant words, but not much listening and not much example of kind of really engaging. You know, Pope Francis talks about a culture of encounter, of actually listening to the people and hearing them and as human beings. And I think today, what was powerful for me when I went to the cemetery and to Superhumans and to the chaplaincy, what was powerful, you know, you read the newspaper and you get an abstract sense of what's going on in Ukraine, that this battle happened, that there's this bombing, that this is the way the war stands, that, you know, there's this negotiation. But you go there and you see the actual people who are casualties of the conflict, who have lost limbs, and those who work with them to help them. And in a certain way, in a way you wouldn't expect, there's a kind of inspiration about that. That even in the midst of this suffering, people find it within themselves the ability to be human beings and to treat one another as human beings. And there really is a dignity, and there's a power in that, and there's a witness in that. And so it won't change society overnight, but it is, as you say, it holds out hope. It holds out hope for another way of engaging one another, of living our lives, of being a community, of being a nation that is extraordinarily powerful. And maybe, you know, what we don't need is more speeches and words, but what we need is our examples like that, examples of courage, examples of perseverance, examples of care of one another, examples of not allowing the brutality that we see to enter into our lives, and to let that be our story, but give a different story. So I don't know, that seems, what I've said just seems very abstract, but actually, as I saw the people I saw today, it was very concrete, and their examples were very concrete, and it really does that changes people. It changes people in powerful ways. So I guess I'm saying that, if we can give examples of a different way of being, a different way of interacting with one another, a different way of listening to one another, of being a community, that in itself is extremely powerful.
Thank you. Vladiko, we spoke at the theology school, which just happened this week, indeed. Yes, we spoke about. We discussed the difference between hope and too much optimism, delusion. So how can Uku be a place of hope but not delusion? You have to wait for 2 seconds.
Mental Health Center, Oleg Romanchuk, a psychiatrist and psychologist, especially for children, who is created a big part of our mental health program and who now is advising Mrs. Zelenska regarding the National Mental Health Program. He really says it so well when he speaks about our strength coming from our communion, and that the best way to face these difficulties, the horrific destruction, the death, the injustice, is to do it together. It's deeply theological, it's simple. In some ways, it's very understandable, but it's also deeply theological. And I think it's at the heart of our university identity. We have tried to live in a Trinitarian way, building the university on an understanding, a conviction that human life, spiritual life, and everything creative really in human life is relational. It happens in encounter, as John was saying, and it is something that we can build together, and we can't build individually. And it's somewhat ineffable because it's almost between, It's not here or there, but it's when we meet, it happens there. That is the hope, that is the strength. That also is really the great joy. And I think you, and I feel this coming here the last few years particularly. I think you are getting to be, rather like virtuosos in this. I now come from afar and not frequently, and I get hope and encouragement from seeing how you live in circumstances that are at least from some point of view much more difficult than anything that most people have to deal with. And yet you have a radiance, you have a joy, and you keep going forward when Putin basically wants to put a stop to things.
I have 2 more questions, and then actually the floor is yours, my dear friend. So please think about questions which you have to our distinguished guests. My next question is about role of university in a very polarized and fragmented society. The closer elections in the United States are coming, I think you could feel it more, Father John. The longer the war is going on, Bishop Boris, probably you could feel it as well in Ukrainian society. At least we feel it for sure. And again, we had our previous discussion was exactly about that. And yes, we spoke about listening, we spoke about testimony, but still, can you think of this role of the university which can be brought and which can help the society not to be so polarized? And still we are small institutions. We have to remember, I mean, we are a small university. We have just, I don't know, Father John, if you know, but we are just 2% of students in Lviv city, which is almost nothing, but we are just very vocal. So that's why everybody hears about us in Ukraine. Notre Dame is not also the biggest university. So probably my question is how small universities can have big impact, especially on such intangible things.
Let me just start by saying it's not easy. I think that I am discouraged sometimes by seeing the polarization you speak of, Sophia, in my country, and you say it's present here as well. And you can't simply wave a wand or say something and have it go away, but you can try to embody and exemplify a different way of interacting with one another. And it is true, at Notre Dame is, I'm sure it's, less than 1% of students in the United States, probably far less, and UCU as much, but you don't need size. You need people of courage and people of vision who can kind of be an example and an inspiration to people around them. That's what you need. That's what leadership is. It's not just following the group. It's providing a vision and a way of doing things differently. And my fondest hope is that at Notre Dame and perhaps at UCU, there are those leaders that can provide something different. I do think that, I just think of my country, I think the fragmentation, the polarization, the anger that seems to be so characterized, the politics, that just has no future. It really has no future. A society with that kind of public face in the long run will just simply disintegrate. And so we have to find another way. How are we going to do that? It's not the masses that change things. It's generally a small number of people with another vision who can show a different way. I hope that those people who can do that it would be great if they were graduates of Notre Dame or UCU, because they can perhaps show a different way of being together and working together and forming a society, because eventually that's going to be necessary, right? Because fragmentation goes nowhere. It has no future, right, except further fragmentation. So some positive vision will be the future, and I hope that our graduates can provide that vision.
Well, I'll start with what may be obvious, but of which we need to be reminded. Nobody is going to be listening to a university that's not a good academic place. So it's very important to be competent and maybe in the avant-garde, kind of moving things forward in terms of the disciplines that are developed at a university. One thing that I think we can learn from Notre Dame, which some people at Notre Dame, maybe Father John, might be sometimes squeamish, is the play. Notre Dame, one reason it became very famous is because of the football. But there is something in sports that helps people, let's say, channel what could be destructive aggression into just, more playful competition. So I think besides the competence, sports I would put in that category of what the homo ludens wants, the game person, the person who's a human being that wants some play in life. And my experience at UKU was always, let's say, inspired by the willingness to joke and to needle each other and what's that?
Needle, that's a good word.
Yeah. At least that's, maybe not all the graduates, saw this, but the rectorate was, generally speaking, a very light group of people, and it had a light nature in its encounters, dealing with very serious and sometimes very boring things. So I think that quality of, I think it's a divine quality. Jesus had that humor. Jesus had that loving lightness. And that is something that, all the political correctness and all of the care in a litigious society, or a society that is, let's say, trying to delineate ideological, historical, political boundaries, might be rather uptight about. They used to have those games, I think they called it the hyperspace button or something. You would press a button and it takes you like to a different sphere out of this. And I think advancement in knowledge, and then a knowledge that is a loving knowledge, which becomes wisdom, helps us get out of the dialectic. And I think it's necessary, because I don't think you can convince too many people in that dialectic. You gotta get out of it, above it, and tell people quietly by example, maybe you would consider, following this route.
I think of, Pope Francis says, he talks about evangelization. He said people, it's attraction that people, that changes people. It's not a homily or a scolding. And one thing I will say about UCU, you really do, there's a palpable sense of joyfulness to this campus and this community, and that's invaluable, because people want to be part of that. You don't want to be part of some angry thing. You want to be part of something that's positive, that's joyful, and that's just a wonderful quality of this place that I see as a visitor, and I hope you never lose, because it's valuable, and it's clearly it comes from the top down, as you say, with all the needling that occurs among these leaders.
So I have one last very practical question, and it will concern alumni, the group of people who are here. I was surprised when I was in Notre Dame. I think it was 185th anniversary which you had. It was couple of years ago. And I had a meeting with a team which is running Alumni, department, office, building, association. Yes, there's the whole building for the alumni, the people there. And I was surprised that somebody told me, well, we have about 100,000 alumni who are living. And I was like, 100,000 people, that's a lot. Of course, we are much smaller. We are about 5,000. Yeah. We are not 185 years. Actually, we have long history, but you see, Russians, they were intervened. Every time they were trying to ruin us. So we had to we had a little bit slower pace than you had the opportunity to have. So my question probably would be a little bit different. For Bishop Boris, the question would be how you would see our alumni movement, let's say in 10 years, or maybe 20 years. You decide, Ludeko. And Father John, to you, the question is, how alumni are contributing to the development of the university? How do they help you to create that impact? And I hope everybody will take a pen and make some notes now, because that's going to be like a plan for all of us. So who would like to start? Maybe Vladiko, you will give the tips how to do it.
I would hope that this is something that has become ever more apparent. I think in the global information and technological society, that learning is a lifelong process, and I think that UCU can continue attracting our graduates by offering not only nostalgia of their student years, but really helping them address developments in contemporary Ukraine and in the contemporary world. That's one thing. I think many master's programs and many MBA programs, for example, are very much valued not only for the subject matter that is taught, but the relationships and networks that are created. So I would hope that our graduates would come to the university to meet other graduates as kind of the number and the network develops. There wasn't a tradition of kind of alumni activity in Ukraine. The university studies in relation to the institution were very non-personal. It was a place where you received kind of a service, got a product, and moved on. And that I think is changing. John spoke about the skepsis regarding institutions in the United States, which has been growing. Our skepsis regarding institutions was full-blown because all those institutions tended to, in one form or another, be repressive. And it's only now that institutions and solidarity are gaining trust. You have to believe in solidarity to enter it, to throw yourself into it. And so I hope that that is something that our alumni can experience and actually even ask of the university. My proposal would be that you who studied here continue telling the university, this is how you can help us in life. This is what we would like to ask you to do, or what we would like to do with you.
I would endorse everything that Boris just said. I would add, the most important asset of any university is its reputation, right? What people think of it. And for UCU, it's certainly, as Boris said, it's the quality of the instruction, the academic rigor that goes on. That's important. But you claim something more. UCU claims something more. It claims to be about some higher purpose. It claims to be about hope. It claims to be about a community. And I think alumni can most powerfully help and represent this institution by representing those qualities in their lives. Because people will meet you and they'll form an opinion of this institution. You are the best and most important advertisement for this institution. So simply to be capable in whatever field you work in and to bring to that a certain higher purpose, a kind of sense of something more than kind of narrow self-interest and personal self-interest, that in itself is really important. And I'm sure you do that, and I think that's the most important thing you do. I think a second, just on the community thing, one thing that, and we don't necessarily command this, but it happens, is that Notre Dame graduates are just excellent at helping network other graduates. So if you're coming into a field and you're starting out, it's not hard to call a Notre Dame graduate and say, hey, what advice would you give me? Can you help me here? Can you help me in my work in this area, in my career? And I think UCU, you're not a big institution, but you can have that sense of mutual commitment and mutual help for one another as younger people come in, and they will want to know, they will want to learn from you, they will want to talk to you, and they may need your encouragement, that they may need you to help connect with someone so that they can make progress. So I think that's a very important thing. The third thing, and I know people cringe when you mention it, but I'm going to say it because I've run a university and I know how important it is that UCU cannot do its work except through the generosity of people who make it possible. It simply doesn't have the resources on its own. It can't charge tuition enough to keep going. And it relies on the generosity of people who make this possible. To the extent you can, help the people come after you. Help the people who are students here after you so they can get the education you've gotten. And I know that, it sounds maybe selfish, but you really can't do this work without the generosity of people. Boris and I look like we're leaders here, but we're really at our hearts beggars. We're beggars, to try to appeal to people's generosity so that we can continue this work at the level we need to continue it. So don't to the extent you can, and your primary commitments are to your family and to yourself, but to the extent you can, do help the people who come after you get the education that you've received.
Well, thank you. I think we as a country, we made a great step on this generosity movement, because I remember probably 20 years, we were the only institution which was having fundraising events and giving an example that you can, as you say, Father John, beg. We were asking, yes, and it was strange. People were surprised that could be the model for the institution to be independent. Last week there was one of the biggest conferences of Forbes in Ukraine, and it was about philanthropy, and it had more people than regular management event or entrepreneurship event of Forbes Ukraine has. So we are growing as a country on the generosity index, and that's I think it's important because that's kind of attitude which we develop in ourselves. I always say it's important not to forget about that attitude and to make it our behavior. And yes, there is a challenge that we have a lot of needs in the country, but we know that education is a long-term investment. So thank you for saying that. My dear friends, do we have questions? I see one question. Do we have more questions? Because I would rather take two questions. I can do it. That's okay. I will start with Ron and then...
Go first. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to frame this as a plea for a call to action. In today's world, it is very comfortable and very effective to communicate in the absolute And what I see on the one side is absolute relativism, okay? Do what you want, winning is everything, game over. On the other hand, I see an absolutism that leads to hegemony, which is dictatorial, which is what we're fighting against here in Ukraine. In this world of competing messages, which are so easy to disseminate widely, and which are so well accepted, what message should we walk away from today and throughout this war to be able to go down the middle, which is where universities have gone for so long with their intellectual rigor? What can we say that is going to effectively, quickly, at least, if not turn the table, because crazy people are crazy people, but at least turn the tables a little bit? Thank you.
I think we should take it an answer, and then I will come to you.
I just want to first of all thank you. That was a well question, and I think you're absolutely right. I think there is a sort of relativism that denies any kind of a transcendent moral call to us, that it's simply about projecting my wants on the world around me. And there is a sort of kind of authoritarian kind of, as you say, kind of rigidity that is bad. What is an educated person? An educated person at its heart is someone who's able not to give into that relativism, but to discern questions that are complex and require nuance. One of the things about our age, this social media age, is everything's simple. It's a slogan. You just say your slogan, you keep saying it, you don't listen to it, and you just keep pounding it. And that's sort of the character of our sometimes our political, our public discussion. And I think what a graduate of UCU could do is bring nuance, complexity to kind of articulate without giving up the kind of norms that guide us, the complexity of situations. And I fear I'll just say it, I think there's a demagoguery that's present that just wants to make everything simple and choose sides and fight to the end. And that's the end. That's what we have to fight against. And you put it better than I could put it.
No, you put it very well.
Yaroslav?
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank you, Father John, for the time I spent in Notre Dame. Indeed, I can compare now small university and big university, because there I can make easily 10,000 steps a day just going to the office. Here it's only 3,000 steps a day. And my question is, during the previous visit of Vladika Boris to UKU, there was a discussion and there was a question about university, about future of UKU, and I was really surprised by the reasoning of Vladika Boris when he said that he would like UKU to be number 2 or number 3 university in Ukraine, not number 1. That means that we are open others to grow even further. And my question is, what kind of new university, where university systems go? Because indeed, with AI, with with COVID, there are a lot of changes with online. So, what's your opinion about the future of universities and the future of different universities, as you mentioned at your introductory speech?
As you can see, questions becomes harder and harder, because I was asking specifically about our universities, and Yaroslav decided to take it, to the whole world.
But let me just, I do have thoughts on that. The first thing, yes, there is dramatic change in technology with AI and how that, and that is important. But as we all know, I'm not an expert in this area, but I don't see a future where AI can somehow replace intelligent, discerning, kind of morally informed people in whatever field. And so, it's important that we have those. I guess the second thing I'd say is, UCU and Notre Dame, try to not, as Boris said, we try not just to give people information or a set of skills that they can go out and kind of earn a living on. We try to form people, to sort of inspire them, to give them the sort of moral vision, to kind of build a community. That can only be done at a place like UC. That can't be replaced by a computer in your basement, with AI, attached. Yet you just don't get it, because you don't get the human formation that is part of it. So I just see a future for this. If you look at what are the institutions in the world that are the most long-lasting, they aren't countries. Countries come and go, governments come and go, regimes come and go, churches stay around, and universities. Universities were founded in the 13th century, and they have an amazing staying power. Why? Because they provide something that just can't be replaced, no matter how sophisticated the technology. A place of learning, a place of personal growth, a place of community. You just can't substitute that. So no doubt education will change, but I don't think it will change. I don't see it changing so dramatically that a place like UCU isn't as important, ever more important for the future. Technology, as amazing as it just can't replace kind of human beings with character and judgment.
Vladiko, maybe I will ask you a different question. So we defined what has to stay. But what do we have to change in education? What do we have to make better? And we can talk concretely about UCU. How can we be better? And again, please make some notes.
Well, there is one thing that we started with, and I think we stepped back from, that we can return to a little bit. It hasn't been abandoned, but it isn't maybe in the first place. I think going to the sources. I'm a real believer in the importance of liberal arts, of humanistic education, and there's something about reading sources from the history of civilization that I also think cannot be replaced by Wikipedia or just survey texts. There's always a limit in time, the number of years of study. You can't read everything. I think the amount of information is doubling every couple years now. If before it took maybe, centuries for the amount of information to double, the accumulation of information is accelerated. But I think with at least minimal discernment, we see that a lot of it is not classic. It's not something that is fundamental and long-lasting. And I think it would be very good if we look again at the things that have really offered cornerstones for the best in the human experience or human experiment. That's at least one thing. Also, I think at our university, what we can do more, I think we do a lot in architecture, given our size. I think one of the things that attracts people to this university is the architecture, the spaces. But I would like to see us do more in art and in music. And one thing we haven't excelled at, definitely, is sports. And I think we live in a different world. It's not the same American collegiate university world where, sports is almost professional. Actually, now it is professionalized, and it is very lucrative. There's a lot of money in it. But I think just helping us all to be a little more healthy and in better physical shape would be good. And so that's my mea culpa. I feel I did not make a big contribution to that.
Well, maybe we can think about basketball, to start with. Do we have questions? Yes, I could feel it.
Thank you. Welcome, Father John. Some of my American and European colleagues are very proud of living in a culture of political correctness. It looks very Christian for them. I am interested in your opinion. Is there any difference between political correctness as a kind of tolerance and Christian love? And if yes, what it is?
We have another 10 minutes, so it's not going to get easier.
It's kind of hard to know, to define that precisely. But I think there is a certain select set of expressions or opinions that are considered outside the bound and not acceptable, and that's not entirely bad. There are what Aristotle said, some opinions should be not tolerated, not funny, because they're really hateful or oppressive in some way. So that's, I don't want to say that's bad. At the same time, it as it's manifested in society, that often becomes just another form of bigotry in a certain way. Kind of, you have to agree with me, or you'll be punished, and that can't be right. That can't be right. And I must say, in universities in the United States, this becomes a sort of culture that I find constricting. It's sort of against the very nature of a university, to kind of constrict views that can be expressed and kind of to be cancel culture. I'm just uncomfortable with that. So I do think Christian love is a much different thing, and it is, again, it's nuanced, and it's focused on the person, and even when the person says something objectionable, or there's a sort of sense of wanting what's best for that other person, and so I do think there's something quite different there, and I don't think they should be confused. In fact, in some ways, at its worst expression, political correctness can be the opposite of love, in that it just sort of defines the acceptable set of views, and that's my group, and anyone outside that group gets marginalized or punished in some way, and I don't think that's right at all. So I don't know. That's my off the top of my head reaction.
Our time is running, and I think we just started to get into some difficult questions. We had today, one of our faculty members, Danilo, said that the previous panel, that's one of the roles of the university, to ask questions and to try to start this search for the answers, but questions are even more important. So I would like to, well, first of all, say thank you for this conversation. I think we have it in pretty complicating time for all of us. In different way, but the complexity of world becomes even more complex. I don't know how to put it in different, in better way. Today, I think it was very nice that we had a chance to to see alumni of our university, because for us as the university, it's also very important to see your faces, to hear what you think, to see you networking with each other. We had very nice day when you had an opportunity to talk to each other, to discuss things, to network, when you had opportunity to go to your departments or to the topics from different faculties and work even more and go deeper there. And thank you for this culmination of this day, because I think it gives us a lot of responsibility for what we're gonna do tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow is Sunday, so we go to church, and we have the opening of the year, so you're invited to that. But on Monday, what we do on Monday, because we often want to start things on Monday, but there is very concrete Monday of September 2nd. So please reflect and think what you will do on Monday based on the day which you have spent here at Ukrainian Catholic University. Father John, I would like also to wish all the best to Notre Dame team, which is playing tonight with Texas. Well, I have some support team who helps me with this information. You know, we have some fans of Notre Dame in our management team. So it's Texas, right? What are the odds?
They actually are 2.5 point favorites or 3 point favorites, but we'll win. So I'm predicting a victory.
Okay, so we will pray.
Yes. So.
And thank you very much for being with us here. And tomorrow we are looking forward to tomorrow, you know, to this opening of the year. And that's very nice that we have such people who are with us, not only intellectually, but, you know, by your heart, because we could feel it all the way.
Well, just I do want to say thank you, everyone, for being here, and how much you and the people of this country are in our prayers and in our thoughts at this difficult time. Please know that we can't bear the burdens you bear, but we do feel a deep connection with you and support for you, and we know that this people and this country will overcome the challenges it faces. So God bless you all.
Thank you. Vladiko, maybe some great final message to our alumni, because we will have some networking and some dinner afterwards, and before that.
Thank you for coming, and next time bring somebody with you.
Yeah, it was nice because some people came in the morning, some people came in the afternoon. So, let's say thank you to Father John and to Bishop Boris. Oh, you got some presents. Ah, okay. Yeah, that's new. This is new. Thank you. And I suggest that we also, maybe switching to Ukrainian now. Я пропоную, щоб ми подякували Олексію і його команді, тому що дуже багато зусиль було докладено.
Дякую. Я попрошу свою команду Юлю, Ніко, підійдіть сюди. Father John, Владику, дякую.
Владику,
Thank you.
може тут?
Yes.
Владику, тут от є місце.
Софія, дякую. Я не можу, правда, знайти цей клікер. Хтось в мене його вкрав до кінця дня. Чекайте. Не сюди. О! Ось. Так, насправді без цих чудових людей нічого б не відбулось. З-поміж нас немає Вероніки Карачевської, але фактично це ключова людина, яка все це зініціювала, ми підхопили. От,
троє є студентами, ні, Вероніка є випускницею, та Юра і Ніка є студентами. Ми з Юлією, як пан Тарас сказав, не є випускниками, можливо, коли-небудь нам це вдасться зробити. Тож я хочу подякувати всім вам, що ви прийшли, хочу подякувати команді, що зробили цей день таким добрим. І що, до нових зустрічей, так? У нас там є останній слайд. До наступного року. Але це, звичайно, ще не все. Ми вас запрошуємо в хол на частування. Ви заслужили це після довгого дня. І також нагадуємо, запрошуємо вас о 6 годині